met Aidan for a coffee and work a couple of weeks ago, and he was discussing the experiment briefly, so I live around the corner, so I said I'd help out and take part.
I just got asked to be here and I know bare minimum about the project. I've just seen a few people doing it.
I'm confident. I'm looking forward to having a bit of fun.
I'm excited to get going. Just want to get started at this stage.
It's a mild autumn morning in a park in Dublin. A group of volunteers have gathered to recreate Frederick Winslow Taylor's pig iron carrying experiment, 125 years after it was carried out in the Bethlehem Ironworks.
Frederick Winslow Taylor was an engineer who wanted to apply the principles of engineering to the workplace. So there's a real focus upon scientific management and how you would get the most efficiency from workers.
He looked at what people were doing in the Bethlehem steelworks and moving essentially chunks of iron, 30, 40 kilos weight of iron from stacks onto railway cars, and he looked at that and said, well, I think I can improve how this is done, in other words, get more iron onto more railway cars more quickly.
Taylor proposed a system based on measuring workers' activity by the amount and distance they could carry and load pig iron onto a rail car in a 10-hour day. Workers would only work when told to work and rest when told to rest. According to Taylor, his system increased the average amount of pig iron a worker carried from 12.5 tonnes to 45 tonnes in a day.
And the pig iron study is probably one of the most influential of those. And it shaped the way in which, I suppose, manufacturing developed over most of the 20th century. And in fact, it was voted in 2001 as the most important contribution to scientific management of the 20th century.
Each volunteer is being asked to carry a 40-kilogram weight over and back a distance of 10 metres. They'll be assessed on how many carries they complete in 1 hour. To average Taylor's rate, they will each have to carry 4.5 tonnes in an hour.
So you lifted 40 kg and you walked 10 metres, you dropped it, you picked it up again, walked 40 metres, dropped it, and you did that repetitively
For an hour.
to see how much weight you would carry.
A little ramp in the middle or a little step in the middle, but yeah, just over and back for an hour.
In the original experiment, the pig iron was lifted from a variety of levels and carried up a ramp onto a rail car. For modern health and safety considerations, the weights will be lifted off platforms, while a step up and down has replaced the slope.
I mean, the first 10 minutes I was thinking, okay, this is fine, and then fatigue set in, and it was actually the grip strength I began to lose more than anything else. I was trying to figure out different ways to grip it one way, coming back a different way, just trying to balance it out, but no, it is very tiring.
I suppose the picking up and bending down is probably where you start to get a bit fatigued, and obviously you're carrying the weight, so your arms are tiring pretty quickly. So, and I found my fingers got really sore.
My main observation is that it's hard work. Shifting 30, 40 kilos of weight from one place to another is hard going. And it was the norm 100 years ago. That's how buildings were built, how land was tilled, how work was done. People lifted things and moved things, and it was hard going.
Not all of the volunteers were able to complete the hour. 2 opted to carry 20-kilo iron bars rather than the full load. 5 people did carry over 4 tonnes, while 2 of those carried over 6 tonnes each in 1 hour.
A strain on your forearms here and here, and I suppose it was really important that you bent correctly to go down to pick up the weight, but really on the forearms, that's where the pressure.
I felt the pressure totally on my forearms.
I reckon tonight now we won't be able to open or close our
So I started with the 40 kg, but immediately I could feel I wasn't going to be able to do it for the whole hour. Right before the end of the 15 minutes, the last rep, I thought I was going to drop it on my foot. So I said just better to go down to the lower weight.
The breaks to catch your breath, just take 2 extra seconds, take a couple of extra breaths, gather your thoughts, make sure you're doing the lifts right so not to injure yourself. It's definitely an important part of the whole experiment.
In Taylor's original study, he wrote that the time taken to carry a pig was 0.006 minutes per foot or 13 seconds for 10 metres. In our replication, nearly all of the volunteers exactly matched that speed, and with the weight they carried would deliver 4.5 tonnes in an hour. But none of them felt they could have been able to continue carrying iron for a full day. In fact, most were struggling by the end of the hour. So how would Taylor's workers have managed to do just that back in 1899? Were they just stronger and fitter? It turns out that they could not do it either. We have the original records from 1899 in the Taylor Papers in the Stevens Institute in Hoboken, New Jersey. No one did 45 tons for a 10-metre distance. When Taylor published the purported results of his work, it caused a sensation. His book was translated into a dozen languages. Taylorism became a word. The historian of management Daniel Wren wrote in 2005, "Although Taylor died almost 90 years ago, he is still considered by management and business historians as number one. Taylor left an indelible mark on his age and ours." And the pig iron experiments were central to that indelible mark. His early biographer, Frank B. Copley, noted, "In his papers and over again in his informal talks, he used what he accomplished with these pig iron handlers as an illustration of the value of scientific methods." This was not just about exaggerating the result. Taylor completely ignored the actual results and instead said that he had scientifically selected the first-class man for the task. The original records showed Henry Noel volunteered. He said they created a formula for heavy lifting. In fact, in a report on carrying half pigs, 20 kilos, prepared on the 29th of May 1900, this was described as futile.
Well, I'm still sceptical about the contribution of Frederick Winslow Taylor. I think that he certainly made a big contribution to the economies of probably certainly the Western world. But there's something that I felt was missing, was the focus upon human beings and treating individuals as they should have been treated.
Taylor also didn't take into account other factors: hot weather, the height the pigs were lifted, or the incline of the slopes up to the rail cars. In fact, he ignored every factor that did not support his conclusion. So what can we conclude from the modern day volunteers' efforts? They performed similarly to Taylor's first-class workers in 1899 based on the actual results. A variety of results based on individual ability and motivation. Nobody was capable of carrying 45 tonnes in 10 hours for 10 metres.
I suppose if there'd been someone there telling me to lift it back straight away, I probably would have given up after 20 minutes. So yeah, I think the breaks are important.
I was actually doing it beside Dara at the start, and for probably the first 35 minutes, and I thought it was fine. We'd have the odd chat whenever we, just an odd remark every time we passed, but he actually had to leave early, so the last 20 minutes I found very monotonous and boring. I was like, oh, I'm ready to be done.
So I would think, got the easier option. So I was doing a lighter weight, and I also didn't have to bend down as far to pick it up or drop it down. But it's really helpful to do it with someone. It feels more motivating to be going at the same pace with someone else. It felt nicer to be doing it with him than by myself.
When Rebecca was beside me, it was definitely a lot easier. I know there may be something mental about someone else going through the same pain as you are, or something like that. But definitely on my own towards the end, you're kind of getting lost in your own thoughts, and you're just over and back and over and back. And you really started to notice the pain then when you weren't almost competing with someone.
I think I would be able to do it again tomorrow. If I would, just out of my own motivation, I don't think I would voluntarily, but I think I could.
This may all seem only of historic interest, but we still live in a world where there's an infinite amount of data that is not available to planners and organisers, and where knowledge of people, of yourself and local conditions are essential for the completion of any task.